We've got some fresh new young talent doing some things that I know you haven't heard before.
1, 2, 3, listen.
You got to have the why, and we know our why. So
you don't need to reinvent the wheel. Yeah. Millions and millions of people have done this already. You can get help, you can get a roadmap, you can save a lot of time, money, and frustration. Welcome to the Value Add Podcast with K&K. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Value Add Show with K&K. We have Chris Robinson from ACRE Commercial here today.
Robbo!
Oh, yeah.
Yes, Robbo.
So we have Chris Robinson here to kind of talk about how he works as a multifamily broker, and he's also an investor himself. So we just want to ask him some questions and give some tips on how he sees the market and his kind of philosophy on buying units and all that good stuff.
How long you guys known each other? You knew each other for
a long time ago. We just talked about this too when I was on Robbo's.
15, 14?
We did the Apartment Geek thing. Yeah. 02, I want to say.
Yeah, it's been a long time. It's been around.
It's been that long.
Mark Smilchap.
Yeah.
Oh, he got in before you did.
You were doing finance.
Yeah, I was doing financing back then too, but were you fairly new into brokerage at that time too?
Yeah.
I think we were both pretty fresh.
I mean, I was as green as it comes, 22 years old.
Yeah.
I had no idea what multifamily was.
Yeah, I was 19, so I was like...
buildings. Okay.
You're like, your dad owns them. You're like, what?
Yeah.
Oh, is that what he does? Oh.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's kind of ironic how I fell into it.
Yeah.
So how did you get into brokerage? Was it because of your family, and is that kind of what...
Not really. I mean, I've seen the lifestyle that it's given my parents, and from buying units at a young age. My father bought units in the 70s, but it was more
crazy.
Isn't that crazy? And desirable locations. For me, it was wanting to be in a profession where I didn't have a boss.
Yeah.
I felt like growing up I didn't do very well with jobs and authority, and you may be the same way.
I'm the same way probably, but yeah.
So it was and then it came down to sales. So it was like, I remember getting out of college and it was Merrill Lynch I was talking to, Northwestern Mutual Life Insurance.
Oh, okay.
So it was like stocks and bonds, equity stuff, or life insurance. I didn't want to go talk about dying.
Yeah.
And really, you go to your circle, so it's like your parents' friends.
Yeah.
It's your little circle.
So I need you to sign here in case you die. We're gonna give you a check.
And then I randomly was out at lunch with a guy, Luke Daniels, who's a real good guy in more development real estate, a couple years older than me, La Jolla person, and he made reference to commercial real estate, and the guys do well, a lot of money, brokerage.
True.
And then at that point, I literally was 21 or 20, I think it was 22. I put a suit on and I looked in the phone, the yellow pages under commercial real estate. I specifically remember doing this.
Holy
dressed up in a
smokes.
suit and went into different offices asking if they were hiring or to talk to the manager or whatever. And it was a fair amount of rejection, where the market I think wasn't that good. 02 was kind of weird still.
03 was getting better, I think.
Yeah.
And
then Mark Smilchap had an opening, or they had a couple seniors that wanted a junior, ironically. So I started at M&M, Mark Smilchap. That was February or March of 02.
Wow. Damn. It's just crazy it seems that long ago.
We need a multifamily broker. I didn't know what it was. Apartments, okay. My dad does that. Oh, that's interesting. And then they asked, where do you want to focus? And it came down to the area that wasn't being worked by other people in the office, and it was the South Bay. So it was National City, Chula Vista, Imperial Beach.
Yeah.
So I just started doing kind of your blue collar, a little bit lower income areas, and they weren't as sexy as North Park, Hillcrest, Pacific Beach. But I found that really cool because there weren't as many brokers looking for those or working those properties.
Yeah.
Or those areas.
Because, I mean, the business is just kind of really developed too, more people in it. It just kind of boomed here. Because the rents. And everybody wants to move here.
Correct.
And when people move here, let's be honest, who the hell moves here and buys a house unless you have money? It's very rare.
Well, I call it the social media phenomenon or impact, because you can go to Balboa Park and snap a photo of palm trees and sunny blue skies, and then the whole world sees that as like San Diego on
That's it,
Instagram
right?
or Facebook.
Yeah.
So it's like we have all this free advertising for San Diego.
It's true.
And
good point.
And I've been all over the world. Fortunate, I feel really grateful. But I come back here and I'm like, this place is amazing.
This is home.
I mean, it's like
it's home.
It's like being on vacation.
Mexico, the ocean, the mountains, the desert, Orange County, LA. I mean, you kind of have
it's every
international airport.
I mean, I don't even think we take advantage of it. Here when we live here, we take it. We're just like so busy here. This is where they always say is like where you live is where you make your money. So sometimes you just don't enjoy it. Like if we literally came here to vacation and we didn't live here, we would enjoy it more than we do now.
It reminds me of a friend I was talking to maybe a month ago who makes it a point once a week to spend a day going out and doing things like a tourist. So going to like museums, or like the zoo or SeaWorld. It's actually really cool. Yeah. Seaport Village.
Yep.
There's so many. I mean,
really, the only time you do it is when you have friends coming in from out of town. It's like maybe then you go show them.
Yep.
Yeah.
These are the cool things.
These are the spots. Yeah. Otherwise, we never see that stuff. And Seaport Village, speaking of, has gotten really cool with like the new addition that they made. With they've got the
Manchester, Dougie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that thing's huge. Yeah. Manchester.
I mean, it's just becoming. They're just bringing luxury here.
Yeah.
And so you're getting like that different. Clientele. Then you're getting different people that live here. I mean, just think about San Diego. Go back when we used to go out. When you're 21, 22, 23, and I always tell people, think about what restaurants there were, what clubs and bars.
Yeah.
It was like on Broadway and a couple other ones. There wasn't much. And then now go downtown. Yeah. Or you have so many more options. Imagine in 10 years where this place is going to be.
Yep. It's becoming more.
And they're building more luxury. Every restaurant's $10 million, $5 million build out. It's expensive, but that's the clientele. We're near the border. People come across, they spend the money. Mm-hmm. We're getting international.
What about the Bosa project, Pacific Gate, is it?
Oh, that thing did well.
Ultra high-end place down there. I mean, I think it's doing real well.
Yeah.
They're selling them.
There's like a yacht as part of the amenities
just
that you can use and stuff.
No, but that's their, I mean.
How much were the HOAs on that building? You were just talking about that.
One of our clients owns in there. I won't mention names, but you know who it is. $2,400 a month.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just for the HOA.
He was like,
but I get to get the yacht.
He was
the
like,
yacht comes with it.
But hey, that client, you know what? Speaking of that client, they're in their 80s, and what do you know? They bought real estate in 65 here, and they see this is what happens. This is the point. This is what you say. It's long term.
Yep.
This is what people think about. Long term. They're 80 years old. They've got the cash flow. They can do whatever they want. They're buying $3 million condo, whatever, paying, they don't care. They're enjoying their life.
I think the problem that I see a lot is people are chasing immediate gratification, like quick return.
Totally. That's the other negative of social media, right? It's like, I want to buy this to show it off.
Yeah.
It's an illusion.
Yep. Yeah. So it's like in San Diego, you have to think long term. And you're going to make some return, but it's not going to be too fancy up front. The good thing is the values. The thing that people need to understand that I think is there's a lot of ignorance is rents typically go up in San Diego, or I can almost say always go up.
Yeah.
Maybe they stay flat for a year or two, but that's the one thing. You buy an asset, you're going to pay a big price, but you're going to get financing that's going to be fixed for a certain amount of time.
Yep.
And then you can always refinance it and fix it again, and rents will go up. So,
and we're what they call it, the four walls, Mexico, the ocean, the mountains, and Camp Pendleton.
Yep.
This is a spot that's like locked.
Yeah.
And to build here is a nightmare. Like you said, most people that come and move here, they want to be this side of 15?
Right.
This side of the 15. And like you said, most people that are looking online are like, oh, North Park, South Park, because this is what's cool. They're looking, what's the cool spot? It's like, you're going to move here. PB, North Park, South Park, like.
Yep.
But also when you compare to like the rents in LA or the rents in the Bay Area to San Diego looks cheap compared to
Bay
those
Area,
places.
that's
That's why when people say like, oh, it's so expensive in San Diego, well, it seems expensive because you're only looking in San Diego, but you're not looking at even the rest of California or other states, other countries, other cities where their rents are at. Like, we definitely have room to run.
100%.
So,
or they're moving from east. They're moving from like Las Vegas
Right.
or Phoenix or
Arizona,
Tucson.
yeah.
And they go, oh my gosh, $1,500 for a 1-bedroom. That's so expensive. But yeah, I think you make a good point, Crystal, because OC and LA are significantly more expensive, and you're dealing with traffic, worse air quality. I mean, the quality of life down here, I think, is tenfold better.
They
For
said,
sure.
somebody said there, right? They're like,
And the people are friendlier down
Yeah,
here.
we're a lot more friendly.
they
and
said
a
if
lot more laid
Camp
back.
Pendleton wasn't Camp Pendleton, San Diego would not be what it is because of how long it is. There would be required to be more population to bigger. Think about it. All that area, they said it would be so crowded here. It'd be like in LA.
Interesting.
But because Camp Pendleton's there, think about it. All that
It's
land
all protected.
Exactly. So you can only it only going to be so big. So they could handle more here if they can just go up.
Never thought about that.
Yeah. So some guy, I forgot, some realtor guy was saying this whole study they did, if Camp Pendleton was not there, San Diego would just be a completely different place. Think about the traffic going that way.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
It'd be a shit show. And it's already,
It's already getting worse.
because you get into Pendleton, it's like, for some of us, it's like the Autobahn.
Yeah,
But-
totally. I
So-
have a secret little like funny thing that I tell myself when I'm stuck in traffic today, and I see how much worse the traffic is today versus like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm never happy to be in traffic, but I always go, gosh, like I'm glad I own an apartment complex.
Yes.
Yeah,
Because
for
this
sure.
is like a sign of more population growth, more people here.
Oh, yeah.
It's all trickling into people that need housing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing is, housing prices, it's so expensive still for most people to stretch
Oh,
into a home.
it's definitely way more expensive to own a home than it is to rent now. So
Yeah.
not even counting the fact that if you own a home, like that's a liability. You need to take care of the landscaping, you need to take care of the roof, you need to take care of, the exterior, all those things, like when things break. That's an additional cost, but just your mortgage and your HOA or whatever, taxes, insurance, it's way more expensive to own than it is to rent. That's why I think a lot of people are kind of just renting. I mean,
Yeah.
how can you buy a house now?
So
Yeah,
Chris,
you've
you
got
got
to inherit money, or come in like win the lottery. You've got to come into like a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Or be a doctor making
Right.
$800,000 a year. Or
Right.
something.
most people that buy here too that are young, they're getting money from their parents.
Yeah. Like the millennial, and that's why I like buying apartment complexes where the renters will probably always be renters.
Right.
So kind of like lower income, and there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not knocking that class of people whatsoever.
But I mean, think about it.
But-
But if it's a lot of kids where you own or we do, it's like millennials and stuff. They're just moving up and they're just moving up. It's like they're in college and they're gonna start at Marcus and Millichap. They're gonna work their way up and become owners. But it's gonna take them. You move here, it could take you 10 years.
Yeah.
You're just getting people in their first 10 years. That could be your renters.
Or the people that are always going to stay there is, I think, more.
Yeah, no, there's those too.
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've been seeing is like in San Diego too. We were just talking the other day about like how much more housing is actually needed. That there's a shortage now. Everybody's like talking about, are we going into a recession? That's a big
I
topic
gave that
of
number.
conversation. And yeah, you were talking about there's
Surplus of units overbuilt.
trillion, right? Or what was it? Billion?
Not trillion. But
Thousand?
million.
Million?
If there
Okay,
was
2.6
trillion,
million in
we'd be-
surplus though of like housing nationwide.
Yep.
And then
All-
now we're like 1 million
2 million short.
in deficit. So
Why
Nationwide.
it's easy
Right.
why we're there because
but a lot of what they're building in San Diego is all this luxury stuff.
Everywhere.
So
Everywhere.
to your point, I'm like, okay, so you're building all this luxury stuff, like even like Broadstone or whatever up
Yeah.
on Texas. I was looking and it's almost like $4,000 for a 2-bedroom apartment, or you could
That doesn't
pay,
make any sense.
which is
I think
insane.
they're going to struggle with that.
Yeah, and they are.
when the,
I mean,
when the
they're
economy
already-
when the economy
so when the
shifts.
economy shifts, and then it's going to be cheaper for you to go buy a house than to pay $4,000 for an apartment.
Yeah.
Then those people are going to be maybe in trouble. I mean, and then maybe at that
agree.
point it'd be a good buy because you have a new building or whatever. But to be in that kind of stuff right now, I'd be really worried. So,
I agree with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
So Robbo,
Because that stuff will shift.
you kind of have something interesting to me is because to talk about your dad and he was in the business, has he had an influence on you like getting in the business, buying apartments, and obviously you've seen him, he's been retired, I don't know how long, but his story is pretty interesting. But has that influenced you like to look at him like, yeah, I should buy apartment buildings and this has worked for him and definitely could work for me is like,
For the buying apartment buildings, 100%.
Yeah.
For getting into brokerage, not necessarily. That was just more like, I don't want a boss. I want to make as much money as I want.
Yeah.
I'm going to go sell something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
Well, you want to make a lot of money, right? So then you're like sales. I have to basically be in sales and on commission to make money.
I'm going to go sell cell phones or life insurance, whatever. So commercial real estate worked. I just fell into that, though. The buying 100% has come from seeing what it's done with my dad and kind of his little reminders as I grew up. Like, hey, I used to do like the books and balance the checkbooks.
Oh, really?
Cool.
Yeah. And so
was it by hand, like back then?
I would see him paying. He did a bunch of seller financing, so I would see mortgage payments to, you know, Sally Smith or whoever it was, and I'm going, what is this? And he would kind of say, okay, well, this is the lender, this is the person I bought it from 20 years ago, whatever, and I pay them, you know, X per month, and that's the loan payment, because he was doing a lot of the seller debt. Or the gardener, or the plumber, Jeff Franklin Plumbing. Like, I remember that always coming up.
So your dad would buy a building, never
all
probably refinance it, just pay it off and buy another one, pay it off, buy another one. He didn't do like a lot of us is you buy, you refi. It was a different strategy.
Well, I'm going to make another note because I met a really fascinating person. He actually founded WestJet.
Oh, yeah,
Don Bell. He's in Canada.
Calgary, right?
Yeah, he's out of Calgary, and he's just a good guy. And we skied with him and his son Jeff a bunch. But I was talking to him in depth about real estate, and they don't have the 1031 up there in Canada, so they don't have this like. They have something kind of. It's not even similar, and it doesn't really have the benefits. So I'm like, we have the biggest advantage of a 1031 tax deferred exchange in the States.
Insanity.
It's crazy. I mean, you can literally start with 3 units. We won't name names, but we know people who
4
started
units.
with 4.
They have 5,000 now.
And they have like 5K. Yeah. It's insane.
Yeah.
And they've never paid tax because they never sell, and they use that little IRS tool. That's huge.
And the other tool we were talking about, just so that the audience knows, is why you should be a real estate investor is you can sell this property, exchange it in this property, create value, and refi pull, cash out. That's tax-free, and go buy another property, do it again, buy another property, do it again. So people go, how does that guy get to 200 units or 1,000 units or 4,000?
It's always the question.
They basically, some people move at lightning speed, and some people say, I'm going to do this over 20 years, and they get to 100. But that's pretty much, I mean, you work
basically
with people
leverage.
like that.
I mean, you use leverage to grow.
They're either selling the building, 1031 to another one, or refining, pulling cash, and buying another one.
Correct.
That's the key. And the key, really, I think, for being successful at this is it's hard, but try not to ever touch your principal. Try to always take that money back out. Either put it in to rehab the building or buy another one.
Or buy a Ferrari.
Yeah, you can do that.
Or buy a Ferrari. That's what Kenny listens.
Which you do once in a while.
Yeah. You got to treat yourself once in a while.
Well, like Robert Kiyosaki was saying, like, okay, so I want to buy this
this is
Ferrari.
funny.
What asset do I have to buy to pay for the Ferrari? So now I need to buy a 50-unit building to pay for the Ferrari, or that's probably just a 10-unit building.
That's what he said. So Robert's like,
I
want to go buy a second home. His wife might go, okay, cool. We're going to buy a new asset to pay for that second home or whatever. Even though it might make more, once you get that mentality, I think people understand, you start thinking, doesn't mean you can't buy stuff. It means you got to do something first before you buy.
Exactly. You got to reward yourself. And the Ferrari came from refinance proceeds from a 10-year
tax-free.
So I didn't do anything with that car until I said, okay, I've closed this deal, and here's the refinance. This is like a reward.
And you own several other buildings before that too.
So, guys, this isn't his first building, so he was saying once you get down the road, you can
No, I've been doing this since 06, I think.
Yeah.
That's when you bought your first building?
Yeah.
So guys, don't do it on your first deal.
Nice.
Talk about rough that was. Almost got beat up a couple times. But no, to answer your question, my dad bought and holds. We're pretty conservative, but he did do 1031s. That's why I took a tangent. So he, I think properties that he added a lot of value to quickly, like a 4 or a 6 unit, he would trade into a bigger building.
Okay.
But generally, he bought and held. And I think only if assets were maybe a little bit too much work, or the expenses were high, or something, or it's just
then you think, we just got to get rid of
manage. Then you just you sell it at the biggest price and move on.
Yeah.
And what was your dad like? Back then, I know you probably we always talk about some, because to us, it's like just hearing the price per door is crazy. But I mean, I know you always say there's some crazy stories. Like, tell us about like how your dad, like the MLS was in like in the book, and then
paperback
price per door. And I know even you would say, like, people tell your dad that seems expensive now, and they're like, I'm not gonna buy. It was like,
or you're
like,
crazy for paying 10 grand a unit for that deal.
It always seems expensive.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you could I tell some of my best clients, you could overpay today for an apartment complex, and you're going to be laughing in like 5 years and very, very happy that you did that. So you don't have to get like this crazy deal at any point. But my dad, when we were at the old office, brought in a 1979 MLS paperback book.
That's crazy.
Of all the listings, and they would do it maybe like per week. It was like a phone,
so crazy.
Like
that's how you would
book.
have to. Yeah.
And he took it back. I'm like, oh, let's leave it here. He's like, no, I want it back.
Yeah.
It's like
it's cool.
Really
it's like
neat.
Yeah. It's vintage.
But I looked through it, and the most desirable parts of the county. Let's take the coast out of the picture.
Okay.
Like La Jolla, Carlsbad, but like Campus, Cleveland Avenue, University Heights, Hillcrest, Robinson, like $15,000-$20,000 per unit.
Crazy.
This is in 1979, the year I was born, and the rents were. And this is for anybody that is young and is deciding whether to pay a big price for San Diego apartment complex. Do it, because it's going to be the exact same situation in 20 or 30 years when we're looking back.
Right.
Because history repeats itself, and there's only more people moving here.
I mean, people told your dad, I don't know if Matt told me, they're like, a friend, like, that's crazy. Why are you paying 20 grand a door? That's expensive. You're crazy.
Yeah.
And now they're like,
oh my gosh, like, what are you doing?
Just like people do now.
And it was the same thing. If you go talk to these old timers, they were making very thin returns back then.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like 20% returns. But I remember we did a brewery tour with my dad and some friends, and we were up there riding bikes around, and he passed on a deal. I think it was on Campus, which is a super good street west of Park, for like $15,000 a door or something. It was like a Huffman.
Funny.
It was like a newer Huffman building.
Well,
crazy.
It's funny because when I did property management, I would have these clients that would buy these deals, and they'd always come like, Crystal, how can we get the income up? Like, we're not making enough money on these deals. And I'm always like, you guys are always, every time you close on a deal, you're going to think, because especially if you're now in that mentality, you're a real estate investor, like, you want to get a deal. It's all about the deal. So you always think when you close on a deal that you paid market price, which nobody wants to pay for. I overpaid, I paid market, whatever. And then, like you said, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, you're like, oh, this is actually a good deal. So it's like, I'm always telling people, come back to me in a couple years after this thing's cash flowing for you and you're increasing income, and tell me if you still think it was a bad deal.
Yep, 100%. It was like the building I was just telling you about with the client who bought that asset, paid top of market at 1.3, $1.3 million in Oceanside 3 years ago, and now it's worth $1,575,000, maybe $1.6 million on a good day. It's like, and he hasn't done really much.
And if you haven't done anything,
all he's done is raise rents. He had a couple turnovers. He put some granite in the kitchens.
Some minor
little updates. Yeah. It's a very if you're a people person and responsive and available, and you know how to deal with people and treat them nice, it's a great business to build wealth in.
Yeah. I always tell people, if you're a super conservative investor, because I run into people all the time that act like real estate is so risky. For me, I'm like, if you're a super conservative investor, apartments are the perfect thing for you to invest in. They're never going to go anywhere. Yep. You're not going to, like, the lowest chance possible that you would lose money on the deal. Like, I think apartments is the smartest, safest investment for someone who doesn't want to be aggressive.
Yep. I think it's the best product type. I mean, self-storage, I heard, is amazing.
Yeah, that is good.
I would love to own it.
Not a lot of it.
Yeah.
It's hard to get here, man. It's tough.
I've never had the opportunity. Manufactured housing, mobile home parks, trailer parks, I've heard are good.
Too, for sure.
But apartment complexes are just money. And we, and you probably too, have clients or people you know that own a bunch of homes. Mm-hmm. I met a guy in Mammoth, a younger, real successful guy who owns like 25 homes out by state, and he came to me. It was like, I wish I bought apartments, because they're a pain in the butt to manage, And I thought about it. I was on the chairlift up there. I'm like, if you have a house, you have all these exterior walls.
Four walls
Four
for every.
walls, fences, landscaping.
Roofs, everything.
The gardener has to go to each place. So there's no economy of scale as opposed to like a box of different units. Not a box, but
it's a lot.
I tell clients this all the time that aren't at that point yet of realizing that the single families are not a good investment. But I'm like, they leave, you're 100% vacant. There's nobody else to pay that mortgage but you.
Yep.
And then if you have turnover, so whatever money you thought you even made, people look at things on an annual basis. With single family, you can't do that. You need to look at it like on a 10-year scale, because when you need to replace the roof or you have to paint or you have to do landscaping, you're giving back all that cash flow that you got the year before or years before.
Yep.
If anything happens. I just think single families are a loser no matter what.
And the resale experience is a lot worse too. Mm-hmm. There's more exposure liability wise. Mm-hmm. The disclosures are a pain in the butt.
Yep.
And if you want to go trade a house,
you got to sell all of those.
Right.
You have to time all that.
You have to orchestrate this whole situation
or do
to sell.
A portfolio.
Yeah.
And then you're going to sell at a discount.
You know who?
And then it's got to be vacant probably if you want homeowners to buy it. So then you're sitting there on the market vacant with no income. I mean, there's just a million reasons.
I see it all the time.
Yeah.
Dean, Dean DeGracia, you know him?
Oh, I don't think so.
You probably see him. He has the glasses. He has the real estate. He used to have like what do you call him? He's really big, but he's like a real estate coach and had the infomercials growing when you're growing up.
Yeah.
You see, if I showed you pictures of him, Grant Cardone was interviewing him, and he was like, he had bought, he had like 2,500, 3,000 homes. And he's like, told Grant, he's like, I'm selling them. He's like, this is a nightmare to manage them. Yeah. He's like, I'm going, and he's like later in his career, he's like, I'm going to multifamily. He told Grant, I wish I would have bought multifamily from day one, because you'd have made way more money. You just do. And scalability is faster. Like, he's got to sell all those, figure it all out, package a deal, exchange in something else. It's a nightmare. Could you imagine?
Yep.
It's like individual inspections.
And a lot of people hold off on even doing it. So they slow down their own growth because they just don't want to deal with the pain of it all.
2,500 inspections, 2,500 appraisals.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, how about just every house is a little termite? It's just a nightmare.
Yeah.
So
I agree. Apartments is the way to
go. What advice do you give somebody? I mean, do you get people that are coming to you? I mean, you've been doing this a long time, but you're getting people that's like fresh, never bought an apartment building. I want to invest. They've got some money. What's the typical advice you're giving to somebody that's like fresh off the boat, as we say, like getting in apartments?
That's new. That's a new.
Owner.
It's a new experience for them. Yep. To not get emotional when it comes to the look or the I think people focus on really nice locations. I want something.
They want something that they're like proud to show everybody.
Pride of ownership type
thing. I want a place because I go to the coffee shop down the street. That's great, but it's just so expensive, and it's hard to stretch with the down payment to get into that. So I read an article yesterday. I forget who published it, but it was reinforcing the fundamentals of working class apartments. So stuff that's not fancy, but it's near
the bread and butter, as we call
major,
it, right?
El Cajon Boulevard, University, or it's off of a freeway. So Lemon Grove, La Mesa, Chula Vista, National City, Vista, Escondido, those areas I really like, and I also speak Spanish, so I've always liked the Hispanic Latin
Monty's smiling over there
culture. Well, yeah, Monty.
Latina.
So I like dealing with that tenant profile. I like Hispanic people.
They pay.
Mexican people, whatever. They pay. They're good people.
They like the gringos.
They're usually family oriented.
A lot of them are Christian. Whatever that means. So they don't want to cause a whole lot of problems, and they're not cooking meth in the kitchen or doing like really weird stuff.
We've had that too.
I've seen
people think it's like, I mean, you're in apartments, you've seen it all. Like, I don't think people.
I don't know. When you think you've seen it all, you haven't seen it all. Actually,
they blow up the kitchen.
So I would focus on something that is, and it's older. That's okay too. Just do an inspection.
Yeah.
Look at the plumbing. Put a camera down the main sewer line so you don't have to do. That's a big expense that I've had to deal with twice because I was young and I didn't know.
Yeah.
When the main is old, so
it's a lot of work.
And then you got to dredge it all out.
Yeah.
Do basic stuff like that, and then just focus on working class areas that are not super rough, but they're I call them like B- C+.
Yeah, I agree.
All day long.
I agree.
Those are great.
And what's your strategy then, typically to somebody that's maybe acquired, 2 or 3 properties, apartment buildings,
And they want to grow.
and they come to you and say, hey, look, we've got some equity in them. We want to start trading up. We want to start build. Like, some people, you get to a point where they're like, I've got some, but they're like, okay, I got to start thinking, I get the cash flow up. I'm in 20 years, got to retire. They got to start mapping this stuff out. You just can't wait till, 2 years before you're going to retire and just start buying. So what's your strategy on starting to build that portfolio, and what's your advice to people?
That's a good question. We talked about refinancing. If you have a property that's just a really great experience to run it and manage it, and you're like, I will never sell this, then refinance it every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
I've got a fourplex in North Park I've refinanced 4 times. I've only owned it for 8 years.
Cash out.
Yeah, cash out.
And then put that money to work.
And then put that money to work, because that's tax free, assuming you never sell the asset. Take that out tax free, use that as a down payment for another property. Continue working your day job. For me, it's real estate brokerage, making commissions on closed deals, or whatever you do. Teacher, doctor, you sell insurance, whatever. And then just couple that all together. 1031 exchange, though, we talked about that. I mean, that's a huge benefit that we have. And a lot of clients are, and it really frustrates me. Actually, yesterday it kind of pissed me off with a couple of clients who are like, I won't sell until I find my ideal where I know I'm going to go. So we call it carriage before the horse syndrome.
Yeah.
That's good. No, it's true.
Because it's true. And it's like, you've got to work with a broker who's super proactive. You build extensions into the escrow.
Yep.
So you've got a ton of shopping time. And at the end of the day, I've done, 5 or 6 1031 exchanges. They're never comfortable. You guys have probably done the same. But you figure it out, and you put in the extra energy, and you call all the contacts, you send letters out, whatever, and you end up finding deals.
Well, I kind of say that to people all the time too, because it's like, sure, it's going to be uncomfortable, but whenever were you trying to get to the next step in your life or your career, the next chapter, was it comfortable for you?
That.
So
Yep.
yeah, when you wanted to start a new career, that was uncomfortable. You had to do things that were new to you. It's like the same thing with a 1031 exchange. You want to try and play with the big boys, then you got to go do the big boy things. So
it's like I want to be stronger and buffer,
but I don't want to work out.
I got to go to the gym and feel the pain of lifting heavy weights.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I think the other thing too is people forget for your job, when you're in an exchange, right? Then somebody trusts you to sell their building in exchange. That's a lot of pressure on you. So you take it serious. You're like, okay, I got to hustle. I got to find something.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, when they're not in an exchange, you're like, oh, I found a building. Like, well, here's the problem is that guy's willing to sell it to me. I have a relationship, but he's like, you haven't even listed the damn building.
Exactly.
So
they're not taking seriously.
There's 3 other people behind them that are like, they're in exchange.
I tell people that every time.
So the guy that's
you've already got your good client list. Why are you going to work with someone who won't even put the faith in you to list their property and help you find a new one?
But here's the thing for you, for me, in my opinion, is like, and this is to people that are not doing this, is they go into exchange, they're going to buy this property over here. For you, you're like, look, he's in exchange. We got 30 days. This seller knows that you're serious. They're like, oh, we're going to list and we're going to hope to sell. There's no seriousness because you're competing. This is a competitive market. It's not like they're the only buyer. And I think people forget that. The chances of them finding a great deal that's somebody willing to wait is like in San Diego is slim to none. Yeah. We're not in Nebraska where maybe you can do that.
No, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's like, in theory, it makes sense. I can do that. But
Right.
It doesn't work like that. And I can say in 17 years of brokerage, I've never had, if you stay in San Diego, I've never had a failed 1031 exchange.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a good testament.
A client that went to Ohio once and bought a huge asset and did not do well with that, but that was against my advice to go into it was a seedy market. This was like 15 years ago, 14 years
I'm
ago.
always like nervous when clients come to us and say, oh, what do you think if I buy a property in Ohio or Kansas? It's a 13 cap, and you're like, I think that's too good to be true. I mean, what's your vacancy factor over there? How are we going to find a good management company? What if the management goes bad? I mean, all those things, your 13 cap just went back down to like a 5 cap and you're flying to Ohio to see your property.
And you have elements that you have nothing, you don't know about. You have snow.
Right.
You have huge central boilers. What if those go out?
Yeah.
Like, all kinds of mess. You have politics and property tax situation that you don't. It's all new.
Right. And here in your backyard, the thing too is like, for example, you know that there are better streets to own on in National City or Chula Vista. Like, you know, down to probably the block of like which blocks are better and not. When you're going to a market like that, you're going to have to rely on someone else, and you're not really going to be able to do your research like you know in the city that you live.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing that I feel like these people that are trying to go out. I mean, there are, of course, syndicators and companies that are owning all over the country, but they have like analysts and people flying and going and visiting and developing these relationships, and they're running statistics, and they have all this access to information that allows them to do that. I think when you're just a guy trying to buy apartments, trying to grow your portfolio, that is just not a smart way. It's like playing roulette, I feel like.
Yeah, it is. You want to buy as big a properties as you can, and I just had a little visual that I thought I'd share. So I think the ultra conservative way is to buy and hold. You never sell anything.
Right.
You never refinance it, whatever. You buy and just pay it off.
Yeah.
Second would be purchase and then refinance as much as you can, and then buy more units, but you never sell anything.
Right.
The third, which I like, I'm kind of in between the second and third, is to purchase, refinance the good properties, the ones you really want to hold on to, but then also sell properties where you're like, I'm not in love with this building. Maybe the cash flow's not really good. The tenants cause me problems.
It's not running like you hoped it to.
Yeah, the experience is like a little bit of a pain in the butt. Then push that value, whatever, put it on the market, work with a broker who's going to be super proactive, who's in the office, build some extensions into the escrow so you have more shopping time before the IRS clock starts for 1031, and then go parlay that into a bigger building.
Right.
Yeah.
That's the way to do it.
That's how you grow.
I had a little triplex on Birch Street down here, and it worked, but it was a pain in the butt with tenants that were paying late. There was a cockroach problem in a unit. I just was over it.
Yeah.
And I sold that and ended up finding an opportunity through a guy in my office who got compensated, 9 units in Vista.
Sick.
And
That's about the 9
all
units.
this built-in equity there.
That's a good spot, Vista too. I love Vista.
Built-in equity there. The cash flow is better. It's not amazing, but it's better.
Yeah.
And now I've got 9 units.
It's a step up.
Yeah, 9 units as opposed to 3.
Yeah. And that's what you do. I mean, that's kind of our philosophy too. Is, I mean, we always think every time like, okay, this time we're going to keep the properties. We're supposed to keep the properties. But then I feel like because we like to do the rehab, we kind of max them out. And I'm thinking, okay, it's going to be a while. Like, I just maxed these out. I rehabbed every unit.
We tapped out the value.
Or charging the highest rents. Like somebody told us one time before, a unit's only new one time. So I feel like you kind of get the best out of that that you're going to get for a while. So now we're like, okay, we pretty much doubled our down payment, which is kind of cool. And now we can sell it and move into the next bigger thing. So, that's kind of how we've done it. But we've leveraged too. So we kind of do both. We do the 1, 2.
Yeah, you're doing the 2 and 3.
Yeah.
And you're also using those big rents, and you're basically attaching that to a cap rate to push the value.
Yep.
And I think you need to ask yourself, would you pay those prices for those assets? And if the answer is no, then maybe sell them and go into something where you can add
The answer is no for us.
Right. Yeah, the answer's for us.
Yeah, no, to be honest, but somebody...
Because we like to go in and add the value, so that's...
But some people also...
Some people don't want to do that. If you're a doctor or a lawyer...
Because the work's a pain in the ass. It is.
Yeah.
They don't want to do it.
Yeah, you guys did that, yeah.
What's some of like... Because obviously you've been doing this a long time. You got to meet a lot of the big owners and all that, which is awesome. You need a water?
No, I'm good.
Okay, we can get you a water.
I'm good, thanks.
What's some of the best advice you get from some of these big apartment owners that everybody kind of, we don't mention names that people look up to, but what is the stuff you probably learned from them and you take away and it's helped you in your career and, doing what you do?
Stay on top of management. Go drive by your buildings once in a while if you're not super hands-on. I think it's going to come back to focusing on cash flow and the numbers and not having to be in an area where you're like, oh, I could live here. It doesn't need to be like that. Some owners who live in the fanciest places in town own all or most of their units in like
C's and D's,
total low income areas, and that doesn't mean they're slumlords whatsoever.
They have nice buildings.
They maintain their assets, and they're actually the tenants are happy there, but you can't get emotionally tied to that.
No.
I think that's the number one thing.
I tell clients too, like, this isn't an art project. This is an investment. It's like.
I like that.
So for you, that's what you're doing. You're dealing
don't
with
get emotionally.
You're dealing with people that are just like, and so people always ask that for management. They go, since we manage all those properties, they go, what's the number one thing? And I go, getting emotional. Then they call me like, this tenant, and I go,
they get
exactly.
involved in the drama.
I told you, 3 days he doesn't pay, send an eviction. Well, he said this. You're being emotional. Well, I know him. He's a friend. Then you shouldn't rent to your friends. I tell people, if you're going to rent to your grandma, your cousin, your uncle, your brother, your mom, if you're not willing to evict them, then don't rent to them.
And I can't believe I didn't think about that, but that's a huge point, Kenny. Don't get close to the tenants.
Yeah.
Oh, I tell them.
It's business.
So arm's length. If they want you to come, if they invite you in for apple pie,
no,
tell them that you're busy. You're gluten free or whatever.
That's awesome. Yeah. I'm allergic to apples. They're like,
I mean, I was at an inspection in Oklahoma.
Gosh, I agree.
With the sweetest people who were inviting me in for like home cooked food, and I was like the broker. I'm like, no, I can't even get involved with this. These are like great people.
But
but it's a business. And we all see these landlords that just get taken advantage of by the tenants.
And they
get too close.
And usually those are the most dangerous too.
They're so nice.
But it's happened too. Like, we had a client that we took over his management. The lady, his on-site manager, was like, for 20 years, his on-site. She's so nice. She's like family. It's great. The second he sells the building, she goes and sues him for like not paying her properly. And he ended up having to settle with her for 20 or 30 grand or something. So it's that person that was like family and so great and so wonderful. At the end of the day, we're all humans, and we are all like, we need to get ahead for ourselves, and not in a bad way, but it's like, he kind of dropped the ball on some things, and she saw an opportunity, and of course she took the opportunity, right? So it's like, you kind of have to be careful with those things too, I think.
Well, people forget, it's like life goes on. Like, we could be friends, but if you sell a building and you put me in a position where I might financially hurt, or somebody's like, hey, by the way, we don't want you as an on-site, and I can't get the free rent, and I've been here for 20 years and I got to go find a new place, and you're putting the stress on me, that causes people to do things that they have to do to protect themselves. And just like you said, when you're being emotional with that tenant, it's all good until something blows up. And then what they do is, oh, come on, Chris, come on. You've come in for dinner 3 times. Give me another month. The next thing you know, it's 4 months behind. And then they're like, hey, I can't pay you. And then I got to get out. And then you're like, dude, that dinner just cost me $8,000, like, or whatever. And that's what people don't get. That's why it's like, it's business.
Yeah, you got to be friendly with a heart, but you have to be super firm, and you have to draw
boundaries.
And another thing, to answer your question on what successful owners are doing or habits, is always raise rents. So I raise rents.
That's a very good.
Every single year on these assets, and I'm not at the top of market, but I'm close. I'm like a notch below.
I agree with that. Keeping it 25 or 50 bucks lower is great.
5% below market.
Okay, so you're doing little inches that you're just slowly just pushing it up.
My North Park property rents for 22, 23, and market's probably 24, 24.50.
Okay.
So a little below. The tenant is not stupid. They see what the comparables are. They know they're getting it's as expensive, but they're getting a fair price.
Yeah. But they're like, I have to move and pay for a mover, and that's a pain in the ass. And so it's like, it's right there. Yeah.
$50, $75, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And the reason is because our expenses go up, and that's just a fact.
Totally.
So,
what are you focusing on right now? As a real estate investor, are you going to start, you think you'll start changing your focus now? Like, if you start buying it, you think you'll go bigger stuff? What's your kind of focus?
I'm loving the delayed gratification and finally seeing solid cash flow.
Okay.
So that, to me, when I grow old, it's like, I want to have cash flow. I'm not the guy who wants, I need to be worth $100 million, $200 million. Great.
Be nice.
Maybe that will come naturally.
Yeah.
But it's not a focus. The focus for me is that passive income. So I'm just focused on
to have your lifestyle.
Working with a manager and Vista, Araceli.
You just saw her this morning.
Amazing woman.
Yeah.
To raise rents there. Maybe do some storage units because there's a big section of this property. And maybe we go to the city and talk to them about it. So adding value, increasing cash flow, brokerage. I've been getting a little bit more into I'm interested in coaching and mentoring and helping people, kind of like what we're doing right here, helping people understand this is not just, I was lucky, you guys were lucky. This is the real deal. If you can think long term and be patient. And you're going to have to put in the work and deal with tenants and pay bills and have bullshit that you have to deal with. Yep. That's okay. But the tax benefits, the sheltering income. I mean,
they're gotten even better. The tax benefits. I don't know them, but we're talking about that at this. I think you're coming to that networking event, but the tax benefits that are now that Trump put in are even more ridiculous. If you know. It's a bonus depreciation. There's a bonus depreciation now. Basically, you buy a building, you can even write off any income. It's it's basically when there's a shortage of housing, as this guy explained it. They need the government says, if you make income W-2 this and that this way, we're not going to reward you. But if you're helping us with housing and things like that, that's why oil or all this stuff.
We're incentivizing
oil or solar or wind and all this stuff where you're helping. Us going and buying housing is actually helping. And people might think and fixing it up and raising the rents, that's actually helping a community, helping the government. You're rewarded for that. And that's why this is.
Yeah.
Go buy a $2-3 million house in La Jolla. They're not going to reward you for that. They're just not. That's just you're rewarding yourself, So that's how they look at it,
And we see that because now the tax bill you only get
$750,000.
Right.
Exactly.
$750?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So it used to be unlimited, then it went to 1.1. Now it's $750. There's a reason why this is because they're we're not going to give you the $5 million. You have a $5 million loan. We're not going to give you the interest on it.
Trying to stimulate the specific sectors.
Yep.
So, for me, helping clients continue to build wealth, that's exciting. It's just seeing, taking somebody and helping them do that, and then slowly growing, or as fast as I can, I should say, growing my portfolio.
So I have a question for you on that. So, as a broker, I've had clients ask the same thing to us too. It's so you own apartments too. How do I know that you're not going to go try to get that deal for yourself instead of bringing it to me when it's a good deal? Could potentially be a good deal for me.
Put them on the spot.
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I know my answer, but I want to hear yours.
Most of the times I don't have money.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's a good question.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
When I get the money, I deploy it really, really quick.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty good.
Yeah, and I won't take on a client at that point if I'm in a 1031 exchange that's pending.
Right.
Or I'm sitting on a bunch
you become
of money
your client.
I'm
You become the client.
I'm super impatient. I need to buy something in the next 4 months. I won't take on a client that's looking to do that.
Right.
It's just it's a very clear conflict of interest.
That's cool. That's a good answer.
Yeah. So I focus on my own.
Honestly, I never really thought about that, and that's a good answer.
And I'll still go to my clients who are getting. It's not a fun topic, but they're getting a divorce, or somebody died, or there's a partnership that's breaking up.
And why do people sell? Divorce,
death, divorce,
partner split up,
dissolution of
partnership. So it's sad, but that's why you get a call and says, "Hey, Chris, I need a list because grandma died, dad died, we're getting divorced, separation."
Correct.
And
the
so,
Ds.
so you
there will always be those.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming too, sometimes you'll buy, if somebody calls you and you have the cash and they're like, "Can you list my building?" Sometimes it might just be a fit for you to buy it too, right?
Oh, 100%.
Okay.
Yeah. A lot of times
which is easy.
I've had clients say, I don't want it on the market because I don't want any of the tenants knowing or whatever.
And showing and inspections and all the haggling and the back and forth. People don't want to deal with that always.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when I have that's a good question. When I have the pending thing, I won't take on a client who's wanting to exchange or buy an asset at that time.
That's cool.
I'll only do an exit, a retirement, or a lot of our clients go into single tenant, triple net properties because they want to go. And I'm not buying that stuff.
Yeah.
I'm too young, frankly. to buy that.
Yeah.
So what do you feel is going on with the market now? I mean, obviously, like, you know, I think real estate in general, everybody's like recession's coming and this and that. Even if a recession comes, I think, you know, we were talking to me. I was thinking it's going to be more in the stock market. Obviously, I posted something 2 days ago about 7 million people are delinquent on their cars. It's not a shocker because the money that was in residential lending just went to subprime cars. That's where it went. Like, remember, when a recession comes, it's always the same money. It just moves in different areas. So it moved over to, where do we go? Student loans and cars. And between both of those, it's $2.5 trillion of debt, you know.
What you're going to see in the next year, 2, 3 years, 1 to 3 years, is opportunities in other sectors. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of new good deals in multifamily, at least in Southern California. So the stuff here, as people don't want to hear this, but it's just going to get more and more expensive.
I agree.
So values will continue going up, not crazy amounts, but it's going to be a steady slope upwards.
And that's what we would prefer anyways. Like, you don't necessarily want these huge jumps because that creates like this volatility. So as long as we can take steady steps.
Value in the deal, though. And it's really like people understand that you can still buy a deal and create the value in the deal, because if you buy 30 units and you're willing to rehab and do all the work, there's going to create value in there because somebody could come along and be like, hey, you know what? I'm a buyer. I'm in an exchange. I don't want to do the work you did. I got a lot of money. I'm willing to buy that deal because I'm 70 years old and I don't want to deal with the bullshit. I just want to, you got it rent. It's done. It's nice. Thank you. Or a doctor, right? So there's a deal for everybody. I agree. I mean, there's like, I think people say you can still create value in anything.
You can still go buy an apartment building today in San Diego and pay a big price and make 3%, 4%, 5% cash on cash after you raise some rents and do a little bit of paint and landscaping and make it look prettier or whatever. That's doable.
Yeah.
That's not super sexy, but it's still like, that's what
you're not losing. I mean, this is the thing, and that's kind of what I tell people, because people lose money in the stock market. You don't really lose money buying apartments. I mean, it's just not like, maybe you don't get the return that you want in the first few years. Own it a little longer, and you're going to get to that return.
Oh, 100%. I mean, that goes back to, I remember when I was real young, I think my dad even said, like, I like apartment complexes because you can go touch them. It's tangible.
Yep.
You have control. You can go paint it pink if you want. Whatever it is, you can do that to capitalize on something and to make more money.
Yep.
Where I've done some risky. I mean, I've done some IPO stuff, and I've lost my butt on almost all that.
Yeah.
Even the guys that did apartments that went and tried to build and stuff, they lost their butt. They should I should have just stuck to apartments. It's just like you said, you're right, Chris. It's like
slow and steady. It's almost like the turtle, the turtle and the hare.
But if you keep at it consistently, you could be, by the time we're 60 years old, you probably have a good portfolio, good cash flow, and then you know what? You can do whatever the hell you want. Maybe 100%. you're worth 100 million, maybe you're worth 20 million, maybe you're worth 50 million. It doesn't matter. You're still going to have cash flow. You'll have equity in properties. But the cool thing is you have a lifestyle. It's like, if you don't have to work, you have a good manager, you can go travel and have fun, and it's coming in. It's just a steady, it's like a river. It's just
I don't know what the problem with people these days. It's like they want the G500 jet or the huge yacht, and they have to do these big high risk, high things. It's like, because they want to be
cool,
but it's not going to really make you happy. I don't need a private jet.
They don't understand that Mark Zuckerberg is 1 in a billion. They think they're going to be a Zuckerberg. And Mark Zuckerberg. But
also too, I think a lot of these people that you're seeing, like for example the Grant Cardones and stuff, people are looking at them today. They didn't see all the steps they took to get there. I mean, Grant Cardone is like in his 60s, okay? Like
61.
He started this like 40 years ago. Yeah. So of course over time he's grown. So then you have like a 25-year-old going, I want the jet and I want the,
30 years. You got 30 years.
It's like in real estate, you could get there. I mean, I think the earlier you start, you could get there if that's really what you want to do. But you always have to take a look at the steps that people took to get there, because I think people like that, or even like you, it looks really easy. Like, oh, Chris did this, and so I should be able to do that. Well, you started in 2006. This is 2019, and you're still building your portfolio, steadily growing. And
but also,
who
too,
knows?
it's like
doing my own work on this property in the barrio.
Yeah.
Literally, I remember demoing a walkway, like a big old wood deck thing.
Kenny loves going on the properties and doing that stuff too. Yeah.
But you got
that was rough.
But you got to be willing to do that.
So that's why I say delayed gratification now.
Right.
Oh, I don't have to work on Monday. I can go snowboarding because the powder's really good because I have these properties that are producing income. It's a no-brainer.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a no-brainer.
And I'm not. I mean, I'm 39, but it's like, I mean, I feel young. I feel like I'm 25.
Exactly.
So it's like, do that when you're young.
Yeah.
Take care of yourself.
So when you're 60, you don't have to do that.
Exercise and eat well, and don't drink like a fish or do a ton of drugs, whatever. And you can enjoy it.
Right.
It's like that nice slow and steady.
So what's next for Chris?
Last year was my best year, one of my happiest years, 2018.
Why happy? Why is your happiest?
Understanding my psychology, understanding my thinking, not being scared of thought, kind of understanding that our experience comes from our thought, our thinking. Mm-hmm. That's been a game changer for me. Getting out from underneath my ego. So the ego is this crazy thing that we feel like we need to prove something or we have to show up and be a badass, and it's really not the most peaceful way to live life if you always kind of trying to like
you're kind of chasing
something, or you're chasing, or you're always looking for approval.
Yeah. You're in competition, or
I'm going to show up here and I need to kind of like have an upper edge. Mm-hmm. And at some point, I got to this realization that like we're all ordinary. I mean, we're special in our own ways, but we're all ordinary people. And if you can understand that, like, we're everything's in us already for the capacity to do whatever the heck we want and to be as happy as we want. So there is this realization that of getting underneath the ego that's been so happy for me, and like allowed me to just have a lot more peace.
Nice.
So that's continuing this
cool. year.
The theme for my year is quality relationships. So like hanging out with people who are deep and we have connection, and that's where I'm at. And that goes in the romantic field and
hey now.
Yeah. And buddies, friends, casual, whatever, you know. So
that's awesome.
And then work-wise, it's like we already talked about it. Just growing. Last year was huge, so continue doing that and finding opportunities. And I want to buy a big building. I was talking to Crystal about that.
Yeah.
So looking at, and one thing that's worked well, but I want to do more of is partnering, maybe do a bigger deal with a group of people and doing that, as opposed to everything I own now is by myself or with like a partner.
Just do a big deal, yeah.
2 partners on a couple, but So I want to buy a 30, 40, 50 unit.
Yeah.
And I don't have the down payment to do that by myself, obviously.
That's kind of where we're headed to.
That's all right, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, it's kind of like, it's cool as I feel like with us in our lives, it's not that you'd had this before, but we're kind of around the same age. But I understand when I come into work and I hustle, it's like my why is I want to get the best ROI where I'm working to make the most money so that I can put it over here to keep building this investment vehicle, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not trying to make more money to go buy all this crap that I don't need. That's just like literally like all this stuff you don't need to impress people. So I think I think you're kind of saying that you like know your why, and it's like it kind of drives you like to go buy a big building. You're like it motivates you. That's what I tell people. Like it becomes addicting to buy these buildings. And this even the big guys, like, why do you do it? Because it's the next deal. It's fun. It's chasing. And, like, they don't have to. They could stop. But why would they stop? It's easy. It's fun.
Yeah.
Especially when you have the money. It's like, just throw another deal in the pipeline. They have the setup. They have the management, all this. So, for us, I think we're excited. That, like, gets us going when now we're, like, we did some other investment stuff that we're getting our money back out of, which is a pain in the ass. We kind of varied off.
Same thing. Not fun. Let's
No, I mean,
stop
we're
that.
going to make money, but the thing is
Yeah.
we didn't have control of it. And we're like, we could have bought 2 more buildings and done this. So we're kind of like crap. But the point is that when we get in this game of multifamily we're buying, I'm like, you're moving and grooving. It's so fun.
It's so fun.
And that's what people don't understand. Like, it's more fun than buying a nice car and a house and all this, because you buy it, you fix it up, it's done, and then all of a sudden you get a check. And you get another check and another check and another check, and the value goes up and there's equity in it, you know?
And that's really fun for people who want to live a lifestyle outside of the office.
Yes.
Yes.
And some people like to work, and God bless them for that. If that's fulfilling and they want to be in the office, or my CPA is in the office and in his probably 60s. And
you want freedom.
Whatever.
You're chasing freedom. You're not chasing.
I want to work. I want to surf in Bali and go on my phone
Fiji.
and
Love
check
that.
my banking account. Oh, my cash, my
Yeah.
rents came in.
Love that.
Exactly. Right?
Yeah.
That's freedom. That's winning. That's winning.
Just my
that's
style,
winning.
and
But that's winning.
not everybody, and
No.
I get that. But these apartment buildings, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. No, dude. Like, oh, maybe there's a better way to do it.
Nope.
Buy just down and dirty apartment complexes in okay parts
Bread and
of
butter.
town,
Bread and
period.
butter. Bread and butter.
And do that in areas like San Diego,
Yep.
West Coast. I don't know.
I
I'm
kind
not
of
really
generally
good.
try to stay away from the middle of the country.
Yeah.
You're probably good. You know,
Yeah,
you kind of
talk
can
to Alan Nevin
Right.
about that. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. He'll
Yeah.
tell you. He'll give you his map
Yep.
where everybody's
He's
moving.
a smart guy. We definitely want to talk to him.
Yeah,
have
I'm gonna get him on here.
Alan's, he's a good guy.
I'm gonna
He
get him
was
on
at
here
our
soon.
incentive group a few weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm gonna call him here.
I've got the,
I
I've
saw
got
him
his
speak
book.
once at an
He's
event.
funny.
He's really
Isn't he
smart
cool?
guy.
He's,
Yeah,
he's
he's got a fun.
I love when he's like,
The way he looks at things is just interesting too.
because what nobody talks about is, and we can wrap this up, but nobody talks about that I always think about, I tell Crystal, is the movement of wealth coming, the movement of the 70, 80-year-olds and all the money that's getting transferred, the wealth transfer he talks about, and he talks about, like, I think there's $40 trillion of transfer wealth that's going to happen over the next 20, 30 years from like grandma to this to that.
Yeah.
But the kids coming up and they're like, and he's always funny. He's like, and they're going to spend every damn penny of it.
Yeah.
So grabbing their attention, they're going to buy houses and cars and apartment buildings and they're going to inherit all this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what we tell people. Like, the people inheriting apartment buildings now, they're our age. They don't have experience. They don't know what they're doing. They're calling you going, hey, I got this building. Should I sell it? And you're like, if you're just an idiot broker, you're like, yeah, sell and get the money. You're like, no, we should pull money. We should do this.
Yeah.
Like,
I always ask, why would you sell this?
right.
boat?
Right.
Remember,
Okay, well, I want to
know
go travel
names.
the world on my boat. Okay, I get that.
Yeah.
Sell it, enjoy your, life, whatever.
Yeah, we just had a client that did that. They didn't listen, but I was
Yep.
just like, and I get it. So
Yeah. One more thing I was going to add that,
Yeah.
that I forgot to put on there earlier was, and my mentor Doug Danny, when I was at Marks Milchat, my senior guy, he always said, live in the valley of your earnings. So for people who are making $300,000 a year, $200,000 or whatever, even if you're making $75,000, live a lifestyle that is below that of your
Right.
of your income.
Right.
Because then you can still have a nice life, but you don't need the Rolex when you're 25 years old, or you don't need the brand new Maserati when you're 35, whatever. But then you can put that equity away, or that money, and you can save it for a down payment in an apartment building.
yeah, and then
Exactly.
and if you
have to
keep
do
your
that.
head down and somebody said, and you just keep vest, you wake up at 50 and you're like, you want to go buy a house in La Jolla? You probably can. You can take some equity out and do that. You want to go have a car, that car you want it? That's the time to do it. But if you do it too early, you're gonna focus on that crap instead of this stuff. So
And we've seen that.
over and over, and we'll continue to see it, especially where we live here.
And that's not wrong. It's just different.
Yeah.
But if you can just kind of ease off a little bit, then you can have a really, really badass,
Life.
like 10-fold, 100-fold over when you're 35, 40, 50,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Robbo, thanks for coming
Yeah,
in.
thanks for
hanging
coming.
out.
Welcome. Yeah, that
was
was
fun.
awesome.
That was
That was fun. I could do this every day.
Chris Robinson, ACRE Commercial,
Thank
Mission
you.
Valley.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right.